Alright, here we go. Alright, I'm going to talk about something today that is a subject of media demonization. It goes by the chemical name of diacetylmorphine, otherwise known on the street as heroin, um, or dope, or no one calls it smack. No one calls it that fucking shit. Um, to be honest with you, my take on it, also my experience with it, which has been, well, at least 8 or 9 times. Is see, I live on the East Coast. I live in Virginia, so obviously on the East Coast is different than it is on the West Coast. In the West Coast, you have black tar. Out here, you have powdered heroin. Now, most of the time, you get these little caps, little about yay big, veggie caps. Like the you can. I'm pretty sure they just buy these vegetable capsules or whatever the fuck they're called. Um, or they're basically just empty capsules you can put shit in, or they're just emptied out capsules that have been bought with something in it at some point in time. But long story short, since this phone is a piece of shit and kind of crunched on time, long story short, you get anywhere between zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.3 of powder in each of these caps. Price wise, I probably won't go into it, but it's a lot cheaper than what my habit used to be, which was Roxy's. I love them oxycodone 20s, 20 milligram oxycodones. That was my thing for a while. But pills are expensive, and the next cheapest alternative was heroin. So I met someone that mutually we both like opiates, so I was like, well, fuck it, let me try it. First time I tried it, I was expecting something that the media portrays, which is I never shot dope, I only snorted it. But the media always portrays it as something that you're gonna just, your head's gonna go forward and you're gonna slam unconscious. It's not like that. It's no different than taking a few pain pills. Now I will say, if you do enough of it, and if it's really potent shit, which on the East Coast it usually is, because it's usually cut with fentanyl, which is extremely dangerous. I'm not saying you need to test your shit before you use it, and I'm not even saying that you should do this. I'm just simply saying that a lot of the dope that's out there, especially on the East Coast, is cut with fentanyl, and it's very dangerous and it's a disturbing trend. You know, but it's pretty much no different than taking a few, I don't know, taking a few not Percocet, but pretty much straight up oxycodones, or it's somewhat like Dilaudid, but for me it was like taking an Opana, you know, a 40 milligram Opana. I split one time with my buddy, and I smoked a shit ton of meth that night, and I started nodding out, and I was actually able to go to sleep. And the amount that I smoked that night, I wouldn't be able to go to sleep otherwise. So, you know, but that's not the point. That's a story for a different day, and it's a whole topic for a different time. So let's go back into it. Let's talk about heroin. Now, my father's father used to own a pharmacy back in the day in Minnesota, where I'm from. I moved to Virginia when I was around 12, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, but back in those times, back in the early 40s, you know, early 50s, or basically about 10 years after Prohibition ended, which was around the 20s. My father's father had operated a pharmacy, which back then, they did sell Bayer heroin and cocaine tooth drops and things of that novelty, rather. These things were elixirs, so to speak. They were, an openly available over-the-counter remedy for any pains or problems you might have. Heroin was, suggested for menstrual cramps and, any aches and pains. It was kind of like the go-to remedy, kind of like how aspirin is now. Aspirin or ibuprofen or Tylenol, it's one of those things. But what people didn't know was it was very fucking addictive. which hence the name heroin. It's probably one of the best feelings on earth, at least in my opinion. You know, the most I've ever done at a time is 4 caps, and I wouldn't really say I ever really nodded out too bad, but it does put you in that state where you can't really keep your eyes open. You get this cognitive cognitive euphoria that's pretty much out of this fucking world. Um, I've read things about people having these hypnagogic dreams while they're using it. Kind of like waking dreams where they fall asleep, where they do nod out. Um, but yeah, I've nodded out before on it. And it's a good feeling. I loved it for what it was. After a while, it does get kind of expensive. But it's one of those things that's really demonized by the media, and I don't like that. I'm not gonna say that all drugs should be illegal. The only drug I think should be illegal is marijuana, just for the simple fact that I don't see anything wrong with it. But you know, vice versa, these things and alcohol kill people. And I feel that the media unjustly demonizes certain drugs just because it gets a bad image. Like PCP. Back in the '60s, there was these little. Well, my uncle would tell me there's these little. He used to get these little purple barrels, call them peace pills or whatever, and you trip balls for like 12 hours. But it was different back then. I think you could trust more or less the people you're getting this shit from. Nowadays, drug dealers don't care. They just want the fucking money. That's why heroin's such a touchy subject, because so many people die using it. It is a hard drug, but I will say that it's not as bad as what the media says it is, or what people think it is. It's anything but that. It's akin to pretty much just taking a few pain pills. And it is intensely euphoric, and it is very addictive. I will say, but luckily I never got to the needle part. I only snorted it. But yeah, but basically it's one of those things that if you experience it, you never forget it. The first time I did it, I was like, wow, my mood changed just like that. I felt almost entirely better about a few seconds after I inhaled it or snorted it, insufflated it, whatever you want to call it. And I just had an overall sense of well-being. And okay, one thing that it does do is it does kind of change your voice. It kind of makes it gravelly, and like you do get apathetic. You start not giving a fuck about anything but the drug. But you always gotta not let the drug control you, but you control the drug. If you're trying to use something recreationally, which I don't believe in recreational heroin use. I don't believe in recreational methamphetamine use. I don't believe in cocaine as a recreational drug, especially if you're talking about freebase, which is crack. I don't believe in that shit. That shit's so fucking addictive that you just don't know when to stop. And it's sad. I've had friends die because of heroin. One time I was at a detox program up in Richmond, Virginia, and we were riding around with my buddy Leslie, and he was trying to cop some dope, and he didn't tell us this, but he ended up fucking shooting up in the backseat of the car, and he went blue. So we tried to hit him with the Narcon, but it actually, what we didn't know was it didn't do anything to him. His eyes opened for a minute and then closed right back. Then his eyes opened again, and he just kind of had like a blank eye, 1,000-yard stare. So I will say, yes, the dangers are there. Heroin is a dangerous drug when used like that. I wouldn't say it's the strongest opiate out there. Things like fentanyl and Opana, things of that nature are probably a little more strong than that. But euphoria-wise, it is one of the most intense euphorias I've ever felt. The only thing I can describe it is bliss. You feel just so fucking good, and you just don't care. You could be sitting outside naked, nodding out, smoking a cigarette, and you wouldn't give a fuck. but it is very addictive. You know, kind of getting crunched for time here, but I will say it is definitely not what the media portrays it to be. It is something that needs to be taken, if taken, with respect. You know, it used to be, I've tried it once or twice just for the pain killing, properties, which I think that things such as oxycodone, Percocets, and Vicodin of those nature are more or less not really too good for what they are. Yeah, it kills pain, but it does get you really fucking high, you know. So, and one more thing I'm going to talk about is that's not actually going to be featured in this video, in the title or description or whatever, but I might put it in the key tags. It helps that people might be more well versed on this subject. Is loperamide, otherwise known as Imodium. In my time of withdrawals from oxycodone and heroin, and I apologize if I didn't really talk a lot about the subject itself, but there's really not a lot to be said. It's bliss, and it's I'm not going to talk prices. I'm not going to go on and on about heroin. I'm just going to say that it's one of those things that's just hard to describe, But anyway, going back to what I was saying, loperamide is an over-the-counter opiate agonist. It affects your stomach, but if you take enough, it does cross the blood-brain barrier, the BBB, and it will make you nod the fuck out. It's like taking an Opana, kind of, in a way. If you take dosages of, upwards of 150 to 200 to 300 milligrams, which is not safe at all. I don't advise doing this. But when I have done this to kill withdrawals and also catch a little buzz, I have gotten really fucking high. That's just my subjective experience. Now, I realize objectively, overall, other people are going to say, no, it's bullshit, it doesn't work. But I will say that it does work, at least for me. And you really can't tell a man, no, you're not high. You can't tell him that if he's feeling that type of way. So, yeah. But at some point I will make another video just in regards to all opiates. But this is just strictly about heroin and that other off subject I threw in there. But heroin is not so much a cheap alternative, but it's a more euphoric and more cost-effective alternative if you have a habit to opiates. As far as the myth about, oh, you can't eat or drink on it. No, that's not fucking true. I've drinking tons of sodas. I've even drank on it before, like, liquor or beer or whatever. I haven't puked. Actually, I've never really puked on heroin before. I've come close to it, but I've never actually puked when I've done it. Now, some people say, well, that's not good dope. Shut the fuck up. It doesn't matter. Everyone's body chemistry is different. That's what some people don't get. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's kind of a touchy subject, but yeah. And as my viewpoint on our president's speech that he gave a little while ago about the opioid epidemic, I hope to see some type of something that he does, because it doesn't look too good right now. People are dying every day because of heroin and opiates, and it's not a nice thing. So do something about that, Donald Trump. Why don't you? I'm gonna try to keep my political points out of this. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give this video a big thumbs up and keep watching, because I will have more videos. Alright, thanks guys.